It's election day, ladies and gentlemen. Have you voted? If you haven't, then bleep you. But there's still time, so there's time to go out and vote, and then go bleep yourself, I guess. As long as you get your ballot in before, well, whenever the polls close in your particular domicile. See, in my state of Washington, we have early voting, or excuse me, not early, vote by mail. It's all by mail. You don't go to the polling place and go into that machine and close the curtain and pull levers, or you don't punch cards with chads, or you don't. See, in Washington, we connect dots. Well, connect arrows, excuse me. And then we put it in an envelope and we drop it in a ballot box. Ballot box is located around the area. So it's all vote. It's either vote by mail or drop it in that ballot box, but you don't actually go to the polls on election day. So I dropped my ballot off last Wednesday. I mean, I figure if they're going to lose it, I'd give them plenty of time to do so. I mean, it's not like there are any real big races in Washington this year. Washington has its statewide races in presidential election years, so we got none of those. We don't have a U.S. Senator up this time around, so it's just local races, state ballot initiatives, one that's pro-Second Amendment, the other anti-Second Amendment, and just local Congress critters, and some state legislators, some state senators, state representatives, and so forth. So we're kind of sitting on the sidelines here for the most part, watching the rest of the country go through its biennial corrupt gyrations. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of, given the time it is that at least on. Well, see, this is about the last 2 hours before the polls close, depending on the state. So that's why we're just kind of floating along here. Returns haven't come in yet. Now, I'm going to be live blogging the returns tonight at politicalpistachio.com, so you won't want to miss that. Although you might wonder, gee, why did you take a 20-minute potty break after the podcast? Well, that's a secret only one other person knows, and I'll just leave it at that. She knows. But, I tend to think it's one of two things. Either I wasn't paying close enough attention when I booked the podcast segment this morning, or it's her revenge for my election picks for her state. But whichever it is, we will go forward here on the Heart Starward Radio Network at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. I am your host, Jasmius, your ruler, your benevolent despot, your election prognosticator, much to Lady Michelle's chagrin, and your fountain rabbi of conservatism, constitutionalism, Christianity, and common sense, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, almost every Monday through Friday. Guest call-in number 646-478-5068. Email address jasmius@comcast.net. For those of you who a week from now or thereabouts are watching on the Jasmius Cam, if today is the most downloaded podcast of this week, you will notice I now have, finally, my replica Seahawks Super Bowl ring, which I'm holding up to the Jasmius Cam as we speak. Now, why would you? You don't have any income. Why would you be getting Seahawks Super Bowl or replica Super Bowl rings? Well, first of all, I don't have any income right now, but let's just say I'm not poor. It'll be years before I'm poor. And of course, things that are probably once in a lifetime, you strike while the iron's hot, and I'll be treasuring this forever, so that's why. Now, of course, I've blogtalkradio.com/HSR network. There are over 7 years worth of podcasts for your downloading pleasure, for your education, edification, enlightenment, and entertainment in all your life's endeavors. There's also a follow button that you can use to inflate my ego to even more gargantuan proportions, to keep up with what we're doing here at the Hard Starboard Radio Network, to get show times, which I suppose does have some relevance to the follow button. And as far as scheduling and so forth. And also to put, perhaps, Hard Starboard Radio on the main page at blogtalkradio.com as a featured podcast, right alongside another production of the Hard Starboard Radio Network, that being, of course, American Daily Review, a podcast airing Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. It is the kickoff of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, beginning at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review, where, by the way, there are over 5 years worth of podcasts for your downloading ecstasy. In the first hour, I'm joined by Mr. Douglas V. Gibbs, Mr. Constitution himself, and we discuss, go over, and break down the big stories of the week. And gee, I'm not sure what the big story of this week will be. I'll have to give that some thought. And of course, all except 2 and 1, usually. The last couple of Saturdays that Mr. Gibbs and I have been on the air together, we've done all of them for various extenuating reasons and circumstances. Hopefully it'll be back to normal this Saturday. And although if Doug, if he wants to take another weekend off, I'd be happy to host Constitution Radio for him and interview another top-tier guest. We had Waleed Shabat yesterday, so if you want to go to the podcast page at kcaaradio.com, or the easiest way to navigate there is to go to douglasvgibbs.com, click the radio link, and then click the podcast link, and that will take you right to the Constitution Radio podcast page at kcaaradio.com. But you can hear me and Alex Ferguson interview Waleed Shabat, so that was kind of cool. But at any rate, that's the first hour. The second hour of American Daily Review, at least that portion into which the first hour does not overflow, I'm joined by my good, close, personal online friend of over 20 years from the great state of Indiana, Jennifer. And yes, she does have a last name. I keep forgetting to ask her, can I use your last name on the air? Do you mind? I mean, I suppose I could, but I don't want to take liberties. But you all know Jennifer. You've heard her off and on the Hard Starboard Radio Network, on American Daily Review for, well, it's almost as long as we've been on the air on blogtalkradio.com, 7 years. And we just gonna shoot the breeze, have a nice neighborly, low-key chat. It lowers the intensity. It kind of distinguishes hour number 2 from hour number 1, because then we ratchet back up the intensity in hour number 3. We move over in venue-wise from blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review to kcaaradio.com globally, KCAA AM 1050, FM 106.7 locally in the Southern California Inland Empire area for the flagship program, the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, Constitution Radio with this man. For those of you watching on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/hardstarboardradio, assuming that this is the most downloaded podcast of this week, Mr. Gibbs' entrance audio, is playing as we speak. And that reminds me, I've got to upload last week's Jasmia's Cam footage for the most listened to and downloaded podcast of last week. Problem is, I've tried to do that twice already, and both times it's blue screened my computer. So I got to figure a way around that. I'll probably set it going right after the podcast today, since I'm going to be live blogging the election returns tonight. It takes about 6 hours to upload one of these videos, so maybe that will work. I'm trying to figure out a way to get it uploaded because I can't seem to upload them anymore. But at any rate, that's what's going on the live podcast. And also, don't forget, the Saturday afternoon extravaganza is uploaded to our other YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/American Daily Review 2, usually by Sunday evening. And last week's is up. The Willie Shabbat interview is up. So go and enjoy, ladies and gentlemen. youtube.com/user/American Daily Review 2. Yes, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs is the third hour of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza. It, of course, features the regulars, Mr. Gibbs, myself, Alex Ferguson of ConservativeKennedy.com, and one of the engineers, Joe. Also features top-tier guests, whether national, regional, or local. Last Saturday, I had the immense honor and pleasure of spending probably 40 minutes, more like 30 minutes, under Waleed Shabbat's learning tree. There aren't many living ex-jihadists, ladies and gentlemen, so and to get the chance to interview Waleed Shabbat, which mainly consisted of asking a question or two, and then just standing back and letting him go, because he doesn't need notes, folks. Trust me, he knows more about jihad and is more blunt about it than anybody. And it's amazing. Honestly, it's amazing he's still alive, all things considered. So, again, go to the podcast page. You can get there by going most easily by going to douglasvgibbs.com, clicking on the radio link. And then when that page comes up, clicking on the podcast link, that will take you right to the podcast page at kcaaradio.com. Or you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/American Daily Review 2, the number 2. And you can watch and listen to the whole thing. And my interview of Waleed Shabbat from last Saturday. It's on our YouTube page. It's been uploaded successfully, so I urge you and encourage you to do that. There's also the Book of the Week, the Constitution Quest Question of the Week, taken from a piece from the game, available at many retail outlets, including ConstitutionQuest.com. And now, Doug just put out the email last night that the 20% discount for putting the discount code DOUG, D-O-U-G, in the discount field has now been extended by the good folks at Constitution Quest to the end of 2014. So through the end of 2014, and it works great for the holiday season, you can get 20% off your purchase of Constitution Quest, the board game, when you put the discount code DOUG, D-O-U-G, in the discount field when you make your purchase at ConstitutionQuest.com. Do it! Now, while working several jobs over the past decade, Douglas Gibbs pursued a calling, learning the Constitution of the United States. He objectively researched, dissected, and obtained illumination from each and every word in that historic document. His calling led Doug into internet radio, the political pistachio radio revolution, where he spoke on political news topics of the day, all the while using those events to illustrate the wisdom inherent in our founders and the Constitution itself. A humble man, Doug was soon asked to teach classes about the Constitution and later to guest on other shows, and then on cable network news programs like Fox and Friends twice, like Sean Hannity, like Al Jazeera. Although I understand that one didn't air, probably for the same reason that CNN didn't return his return of their call. And, of course, at National Public Radio. Now, it's hard to believe that he was once turned down as a guest on a legal show because having someone without a law degree totally outclassing the hosts was annoying, and they just didn't want to deal with it. Mr. Gibbs is gregarious, earnest, and masterful in his ability to use current world events to help us all better understand this most historic document that defines structure of the branches of government within our republic and ourselves. Liberty Tree Media Group is proud to market Constitution Radio at Douglas V. Gibbs and also to host our podcasts and live simulcast Constitution Radio at libertytreemediagroup.com. As soon as I know when that debut is coming, so will you. Check out www.douglasvgibbs.com and his incredibly popular blog where I will be again live blogging tonight's election results after the podcast today and throughout the evening until it's clear who's won. politicalpistachio.com. Mr. Gibbs has a post. In fact, he's composing this post as we speak. He started it right after the start of the podcast today, which probably wasn't any coincidence. He knew I'd see it. And election anomalies emerge. Now, these are just some tidbits from various news sources, like, for example, Breitbart. As the election approached, Michelle Obama reminded us how racist she is. She, her husband, and the Democrats truly are by stating that blacks should only vote Democrat. I posted about this at politicalpistachio.com just this morning. On TV One, a cable channel whose programming is geared for African-American adults, First Lady Michelle Obama told Roland Martin, the candidate on the ballot, and what they say or do should not matter to African-Americans because voting for a straight Democrat ticket best serves their communities. The First Lady said, "That's my message to voters. This isn't about Barack. It's not about the person on that ballot. It's about you." Which I translate to mean, what the hell's the matter with you N-words? Get your ass back in line or you'll get a whooping. And for most of the people we're talking about, the FLOTUS said, a Democrat ticket is the clear ticket that we should be voting on regardless of who said what or did this, that shouldn't even come into question. In fact, let me just flip over to that post because I can't remember the exact comment that I made in that post. And it's definitely worth going over here to find. Yeah, now, there are two things about this, folks. First of all, the first black president is actually having to appeal to black Americans to stay on the plantation and support his party. For what other reason would Michelle Obama have been appearing on a television program aimed at black viewers? This logically means that they are scared to death that black voters aren't going to turn out in the droves Democrats need to avoid an electoral catastrophe today that even their national voter fraud machine might not be able to completely avert. Or even more horrifying, they might be starting to think for themselves. And that might lead some of them deciding to vote Republican. Now, here's the other thing that sticks out in my mind about the First Lady's comments. Even in the attempt to appeal to black voters to stay on the plantation and vote Democrat, Michelle Obama is incapable of not being arrogant and condescending. This isn't about Barack. It's not about the person on the ballot. It's about you, translates, to me anyway, to, what the bleep is wrong with you, N-words? You all turning cracker or something? After all we've done for you, giving you full access to Barack's stash, paying your mortgage, giving you your very own Obama phones, raising your standards of living by lowering everybody else's, and implanting those stylish GPS tracking devices in your earlobes, this is the thanks we get? And for most of the people we're talking to, that part of her quote, in other words, black Americans, a Democrat ticket is the clear ticket that we should be voting on regardless of who said what or did this. That shouldn't even come into the equation. Why, Mrs. Obama? Why? Seems to me that you either don't want to have a genuine conversation about why African Americans should continue to mindlessly back a Democrat Party that has been oppressing them and their ancestors in one manner or another for over 2 centuries, or you aren't able to engage in that dialogue because you don't have a persuasive reason to give them, or any reason besides, or else. See, this is what happens, folks, when a party takes a constituency completely and imperiously for granted for decades. Not only do they forget why they ever supported you in the first place, not only do you forget why they supported you in the first place, but you don't think you should have to give them a reason. Just get your asses back in line or you'll be getting a whooping! Something tells me this appeal to black voters isn't going to be something, well, it's going to be something less than completely effective, I think. Let's see, what else do we got here? Here's something from the Washington Times. In Alabama, racial scare... I blogged about this at politicalpistachio.com. In fact, Doug's probably taking this from all my posts over the past week. In Alabama, racial scare tactics have surfaced where voters are being told that if the Democrats don't win, the Ku Klux Klan will take control and shoot all their children. Yes, they actually said that. Never mind that the Triple K was originally created back in the 1800s after the Civil War to be the militant arm of the racists of the Democrat Party, who used the group for voter intimidation against blacks and white Republicans. Some things really do never change. Let's see here. Campaign materials aimed at getting out the black voter featuring references to lynchings, Jim Crow-era signs, racial unrest, and as of last weekend, the Ku Klux Klan. In Alabama, flyers distributed in largely black communities warn voters to cast ballots or else land may be given to extremist groups to honor Klansmen. Copy of the flyer was obtained by the Washington Times. The specter of the Triple K was raised as the latest example of the increase in racist scare tactics aimed at bolstering turnout in the black community, a traditional Democrat voting bloc, for God only knows what reason, A strategist's view is key to winning razor-thin races in an otherwise Republican year. Conservatives view the tactic with disgust. They argue that such race baiting is condescending and assumes black voters are concerned solely with racism and not, for example, economic and foreign policy concerns, and if you think that white Americans have taken it in the shorts from Obamonomics, black Americans have taken it a lot worse. Democrat race baiting is the ugly face of political desperation in 2014, said a Sunday headline on the conservative website redstate.com. And on Fox News Sunday, host Chris Wallace asked Maryland Democrat Senator Benjamin Cardin, Senator, aren't Democrats playing the race card and playing it from the bottom of the deck? Yes, they are! And look at this. Rasmussen polled, Scott Rasmussen, the question of whether respondents believe politicians use the race card to get reelected. In other words, Democrats. 78% said yes. I mean, it really is that obvious, folks. In fact, go to my post about this at politicalpistachio.com from yesterday. And in that post, I have a photograph of an extended middle finger. And that is what the race card is anymore. It used to be a propaganda weapon of mass destruction. Now, forget about it. Nobody cares about it anymore. It's completely lost all its meaning. All it is an extended middle finger. All the race card is bleep you. That the Republicans. That's all it is. And you talk about condescending to black Americans. I mean, how, I got to imagine, I got to think that there are at least a handful of African Americans who are saying something along the lines of, how stupid do they think we are? And hopefully that mindset will spread like wildfire. Hopefully it'll spread virally after this kind of crap. Voters, regardless of race, agree that Democrats play the so-called race card just to pick up votes. Still, blacks strongly believe that those who oppose Barack Obama are racist. Well, how stupid do they think you are? Well, I'll just let you draw your own conclusions. Just 9% of likely U.S. voters think that Democrats raise racial issues to address real problems, according to a new Rasmussen Reports national telephone survey. I phrase it that way, which Scott Rasmussen didn't, but I phrase it that way because there is no Republican that is ever going to bring up race. I think we all know why. 78% of respondents say the Democrats bring up race just to get elected. 13% aren't sure. Oh, really? What are they not sure about? Oh, yeah, they're the ones that are either asleep or dead, I'm imagining. There is surprising racial agreement. 68% of blacks agree with 79% of whites and 81% of other minority voters that most Democrats raise racial issues just to get reelected. Now, that might sound like a startling level of concurrence, but are the 68% of blacks drawing the same conclusions from the 79% of whites? Probably not. Now, this is a topic that I have been flogging for the past 4 years, ever since the Tea Party arrived on the scene, ladies and gentlemen. Byron York reiterates it today with the Washington Examiner. Headline, if I can get back up to it. 2014 proves, once again, it's all about candidate quality. And let me just preface it by saying, if candidate quality had mattered to the Tea Party in the last 2 election cycles, we may very well have 5 additional Republican senators today. In which case, the question would not be, can Republicans retake the majority in the United States Senate? It would be, can the Republicans win a filibuster-proof majority in the United States Senate? I'm not kidding, folks. Boy, this is a long script. Even the notification on the page was long. But seriously, I mean, Sharon Angle, not ready for prime time. Ken Buck, not ready for prime time either one of the Senate races against either Michael Bennet or did he run for governor last time? I can't remember now. Yeah, I think he did run for governor last time. No, it couldn't be, because Hickenlooper's running. John Hickenlooper is running for re-election. He's running for re-election today. And by the way, I predict that Democrat Governor John Hickenlooper of Colorado will go down to defeat today to Republican Bob Beaupre, or Beauprez, or however he pronounces it. But enough about Ken Buck. The point being is Sharon Angle not ready for primetime. Ken Buck not ready for primetime. Don't even get me started on Christine bleeping O'Donnell. And then there was, we'll get to it in the article here. In fact, it's in the lead. Going into this midterm campaign, Republicans were haunted by memories of Christine O'Donnell, Todd Akin, remember that? Numbnut, Missouri. It's the only reason Claire McCask is still in the Senate. Sharon Angle, which is the reason why Dirty Harry Greed is still in the Senate. And Christine O'Donnell is the reason why Chris Coons is in the Senate at all, from Delaware. And Richard Mourdock, that's the name I was looking for yesterday. Richard Mourdock, who is the reason that Joe Donnelly is in the United States Senate from Indiana. And the reason is real simple. Republican candidates who ran for the Senate from Delaware, Missouri, Nevada, and Indiana in 2010 and 2012 proved famously not up to the job, and their gaffe-ridden campaigns motivated the GOP, thank God, to focus on recruiting better candidates in 2014. There is no doubt the performance of GOP Senate candidates has vastly improved from earlier years, and sure enough, Republicans are doing better in Senate races this year. Let me parenthetically add, score one for the establishment. My fellow Tea Partiers, my Tea Party friends. A lot of factors, see, politics is a profession. It's always been a profession. Going back to the beginning of the Republic, there's no such thing as the citizen politician. That is a myth. It always has been a myth. There has always been a political class. There has always been a political profession. Learn it, like it, live it, love it. Just accept it and move on and deal with it. This notion that, the best politicians are the ones that aren't politicians is semantical nonsense. I tell you, that and purity fetishism is those are my two biggest pet peeves with the Tea Party. I mean, we're like two peas in a pod ideologically, but in terms of tactics, that the Tea Party's cake don't bake. You gotta play the hand you're dealt. You gotta work and operate in the political arena as it actually is, not as you imagine in some idealized alternate quantum dimension it to be. Now, a lot of factors help the GOP. Barack Obama's unpopularity has been huge. But even bigger which, by the way, he really hasn't done anything to try to rectify, has he? But even bigger has been the superior quality of Republican candidates. 2014 is proving once again that candidate quality matters more than anything. In other words, there's no such thing as a citizen politician. Go down the list. Recently, Kristen Lynch, press secretary of embattled Colorado Democrat Senator Mark Udall, who I predict will lose today to Republican Cory Gardner, called Republican Representative Cory Gardner quite possibly the best Senate candidate in the country. Lynch quickly backtracked, but her slip was the truth. Gardner has run a terrific campaign with a sunny, positive, dare I say, Reagan-esque approach. Gardner has consistently outmaneuvered Democrats who tried to pin a tired war on women narrative on him. A less skilled Republican candidate might have gotten snared. In Iowa, Joni Ernst, who I predict will get robbed today, has no national experience but a sure-handed way with her state's voters and a clear sense of their mood. Like Gardner, Ernst confounded Democrats who tried to portray her as a turn-back-the-clock Republican. Although, what would be wrong with turning back the clock in 2014? Yeah, I can't imagine. Oh, well, I'd love to turn it back to, like, 2008, at the very least. Wouldn't you? Instead, Joni Ernst exploited the mistakes her opponent, Democrat Representative Bruce Braley, seemed unable to avoid making. Although, thanks to election fraud, voter fraud, election theft, Bruce Braley, I predict, will be the next United States Senator from Iowa. Ernst and Gardner are the two best candidates Republicans put forward this year, says a conservative operative who has been involved in all the Senate races. They're running in tough states where the left has been ascendant recently, but they refuse to be drawn into the traps and the usual narratives that Republicans often get drawn into. In Arkansas, another professional politician, Representative Tom Cotton, is not the natural campaigner that Ernst and Gardner are, but he has a background voters genuinely admire, going from a tiny Arkansas town to the Ivy League to the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. And Cotton has gotten better on the stump by the day. Like his fellow candidates in Colorado and Iowa, he just doesn't fit the ugly image Democrats tried to impose upon him. Republican strategists place Ernst, Gardner, and Cotton at the top of the 2014 roster. Well, 2 out of 3 isn't bad, and it won't be Joni Ernst's fault either. Ernst's? I don't even know how to pronounce that. It won't be her fault. Go with that. But other GOP candidates, some winning, some losing, have run solid campaigns and avoided the horrendous mistakes that hurt the party in years past. In Louisiana, Representative Bill Cassidy, another professional politician, is another candidate who isn't a natural, but Cassidy, a physician who has made Obamacare a major part of his campaign against incumbent Democrat Senator Mary Landrieu, knows his stuff. He's been impressive in debate. From the very beginning has presented voters with a viable alternative to Landrieu, a candidate whose entire appeal is based on Senate seniority and clout. Does that sound familiar? Once upon a time when Washington had the first and third ranked senators in terms of seniority, of course I'm talking about 35 years ago, it was all about clout and bringing home the bacon. Starting to sound familiar yet? Cassidy and Landrieu are likely headed to a December runoff with the Republican favored, although you can never underestimate Mary Landrieu's ability to miraculously pull rabbits out of her hat in runoff elections. Other GOP candidates haven't been quite as good, but they have been serious improvements over the past. In North Carolina, Tom Tillis has run a lackluster campaign, and yet he remains close in the race to unseat incumbent Democrat Kay Hagan, which, call it my upset special. I've picked Tom Tillis to narrowly defeat Democrat Kay Hagan in North Carolina. Like I say, upset special. In Georgia, David Perdue has also been lackluster, but appears headed either toward outright victory or a runoff with Democrat Michelle Nunn, which, as I mentioned yesterday, will be on January the 6th of next year, 3 days before the next Congress is supposed to convene, and could very well be with control of the United States Senate hanging in the balance. And then you can just picture that ending up in a photo finish, can't you? And in New Hampshire, Scott Brown has been a good and tested candidate, but he faced an uphill fight the whole way, beginning with the fact that he moved to the state to run for Senate. Even with that, Brown still has a chance to defeat Democrat Jeanne Shaheen, a sitting senator, former governor, and filthy, despicable sow, who now came out today, was one of the 6 Democrat senators that pressed the IRS to screw Tea Party groups. And I also predict that she will steal that election. Voter fraud will hand Jeanne Shaheen another term in the United States Senate from New Hampshire. I hope I'm wrong, Lady Michelle. I really, God, I hope I'm wrong about that. We'll know shortly after the podcast today, won't we? Because New Hampshire will, of course, have some of the earliest returns on that race. Overall, it's probably fair to say that Republicans will lose just one Senate race because of a candidate who simply wasn't up to the task. Well, is he talking about incumbents or challengers? If he's talking about incumbents, that would be Pat Roberts of Kansas. But in terms of challengers, the Senate seat in Michigan was open, and Democrat candidate Congressman Gary Peters was vulnerable, but Republican Terry Lynn Land couldn't make it a contest. Some observers attribute the overall improvement in GOP candidate quality to a takeover of the party by old establishment types who were determined to put Tea Partiers in their place. And yes, there are old establishment types who want to do just that. But most of the good Republican contenders had to make it through a party primary to get where they are today. And professionals tend to have an advantage over neophytes and so-called citizen politicians, which is why they, for a blessed change, the professional politicians won, and now they're going to be picking up a bunch of Senate seats with the GOP. What's wrong with that? I can't figure out that answer to that question. The voters don't always, but usually choose the best candidate. I think Republican primary, I love this peroration, ladies and gentlemen. I love this quote. I think Republican primary voters deserve the lion's share of the credit, says the conservative strategist. Okay, here it is. They wanted to win. Election Central, the first returns are coming in from New Hampshire, and Republican challenger Scott Brown is leading Democrat incumbent Senator Jeanne Shaheen by 20 percentage points, with 1 out of 301 precincts reporting, with a total of 5 votes cast, ladies and gentlemen. But we bring you the up-to-the-moment election returns here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network and at, of course, politicalpistachio.com throughout the evening. So you'll want to log in over there for that. Now, let's see. Here's an interesting question. What would a Ted Cruz GOP Senate look like? What would a Ted Cruz GOP Senate do? Well, I think we know the answer to that question. Some good things, some not so good things. Now, I'm trying to bridge until the page actually comes up, which is taking forever to do. Oh, well, no, that won't either. That won't work either. Let me try this. Let me try this. Come on, little gerbils. You can, no, hamsters. Excuse me. Not gerbils, hamsters. Okay. Now the hamsters are stuck again. Come on. Oh no, they lost ground. Here, I feel like I'm calling animal races on the animal. I feel like I'm calling races on the Animal Channel. Come on, hamsters, you can do it. Come on. Yes, you can do it. Come on, it's not that hard. I brought it up. Oh, here, yay for the hamsters. Yay for the hamsters. They beat the gerbils. Yeah, with sticks. What would Ted Cruz's GOP Senate do? Surprise! It's not what House and Senate leadership have said they're planning to do. Now, I'm with Senator Cruz on part of this. I'm not necessarily, from a strategy standpoint, I'm not so much with it. We'll just have to hash our way through this, and it'll hang over into hour number 2 of the program today. Utter foolishness. That's what Ted Cruz has to say about the agenda Republican leadership is looking to pass in this next meeting of Congress, the lame duck session. And I am all with Senator Cruz on not doing a damn thing during the lame duck session. Shut the place down. Don't let Dirty Harry Greed do anything in the lame duck session if we retake the majority in the United States Senate tonight. Ted Cruz was in Alaska this weekend campaigning for Republican Senate nominee, and I predict will be the next United States Senator from Alaska, Dan Sullivan. But much of his fire, as always, tiresomely, is being reserved for Republicans themselves. Well, it's altogether appropriate. He was in Alaska, if you follow my drift. Senator Cruz doesn't like the idea of passing anything in the lame duck session. Amen, brother. And he doesn't like what leadership has planned for that session or a GOP-controlled House and Senate. Okay, now is where we start diverging. I think it makes zero sense for Congress to do anything of significance in a lame duck with a bunch of members of Congress who will have just been voted out of office, Cruz says. Amen, brother. Before going on to hit the agenda that party leaders have outlined for the next Congress, too. See you later, pal. If we have a majority and get together and name a bunch of post offices, that will only demoralize the American people, Cruz exaggerates. Republican leaders have bigger plans than naming resolutions, but they have tried to temper conservative expectations for the next Congress. Well, that's largely because even if we do retake the Senate, it's going to be by a narrow margin. We're not going to be able to do a whole lot. The Democrats will be able to filibuster anything that Republicans try to pass through the Senate. And you're going to have Barack Obama with his veto pen at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. So, the leadership is correct to temper conservative expectations for the 114th Congress. We're going to have to convince people that we're not going to be perfect, but let's at least move the ball. Damn it. Page shifted on me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to get it back where it was. Actually, the page reloaded, which I have no idea why, because I didn't do it. All right, where was I? We're going to have to convince people that we're not going to be perfect, but let's at least move the ball down the field and try to do things many of us have wanted to do for a long time. South Dakota's John Thune, a member of the Senate leadership, told the New York Times. And House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy has emphasized the need for Republicans to prove we could govern, a line that is becoming something of a refrain from GOP leadership in both chambers, which is kind of difficult to do when you don't control the White House. That's exactly the wrong way for Republicans to go about leading Congress, kamikaze Cruz believes. We saw small bore leadership in the mid-2000s with Republican leadership, and it's what ushered in the Obama-nancy, he says. Well, no. What ushered in the Obama-nancy is people like Ted Cruz taking a walk on the GOP in the 2006 midterms, handing the keys to the kingdom over to crazy Nancy Pelosi and Dirty Harry Greed, and that is what ushered in the Obama-nancy. It's people like Ted Cruz that ushered in the Obama-nancy. Not small bore leadership in Congress. Although I will acknowledge that there was no reason for small bore leadership in Congress when Republicans controlled all the elective branches of government. So there is that. Now, Cruz says, we need to stand for principle, even though we really won't be able to get anything past Barack Obama's veto pen. Emphasizing that Republicans shouldn't limit themselves to passing bills that Obama will agree to sign into law. Well, anything Republicans would pass, Barack Obama will veto. So, I mean, that's pretty much... See, that's where I don't think that Ted Cruz is quite grasping the lay of the land, because Barack Obama isn't going to sign anything a Republican Congress will pass. Barack Obama will be so partisan, so tyrannical, that we won't have to worry about Republican leadership selling out. We really won't. Because he will make it... He will save Ted Cruz the trouble of having to launch anti-GOP jihads. And so we'll get back to the Ted Cruz piece in a moment. On the Hard Starboard Radio Network, on this election day, November 4th, 2014. Don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 of the Hard Starboard Radio Network on Election Day 2014. And there are some election returns and some races that have already been called, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Senate, hopefully the new Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, has already been declared the winner. And that was supposed to be a close race, but Mitch McConnell already declared the winner in Kentucky. And Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. This won't make Tea Partiers very happy. It doesn't make me very happy, other than the sense that the only thing worse than Lindsey Graham would be his opponents. But Lindsey Graham has been declared the winner of a third Senate term in South Carolina. And I didn't know that Tim Scott of South Carolina was. I know he was appointed by South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Apparently, well, the difference does it make. Tim Scott, the black Republican senator, former congressman, and he was appointed to the seat that was vacated by now current head of the Heritage Foundation, Jim DeMint. Tim Scott has been declared the winner in South Carolina. So Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham will continue to be in the United States Senate. Oh, here's another one. Another call. Shelley Moore Capito has been declared the winner in West Virginia. So that's A flip of the seat formerly held by the retired Democrat Jay Rockefeller in West Virginia. So Shelley Moore Capito has taken the West Virginia seat for the Republicans. Let me see if I can get the page to actually go down to where I want it to go. Gubernatorial winner so far, John Kasich, the Republican governor of Ohio, has been reelected. Nikki Haley, the Republican governor of South Carolina, also declared the winner, ladies and gentlemen. So far it's looking pretty good, but then so far, that's kind of the operative term. I'll keep an eye on that, and again, I'll be live blogging after the podcast today and throughout the evening, thepoliticalpistachio.com. Wait a minute. I was just about to, let's see. Okay. False alarm. I thought another result, another race had been called, but it hasn't been yet. And why would New Mexico have been called this early? Although we know that one of the Udall cousins is going to win, and that would be Tom Udall in New Mexico. Mark Udall, he going down, dude. Anyway, now Ted Cruz says we need to stand for principle, emphasizing that Republicans shouldn't limit themselves to passing bills that Obama will agree to sign into law. Of course, that presumes that Barack Obama will sign any bill that a Republican Congress passes. So, like I say, I don't think Ted Cruz has anything to worry about as far as the Republican leadership not being partisan enough, because Barack Obama is going to be an even bigger despot and tyrant than he's been the last 2 years, and he's going to make it impossible for Republican leadership to cave on anything, frankly. If you think Barack Obama is going to reach out and compromise with a Republican Congress like Vice President Joe Biden said yesterday, boy, he didn't vet that comment past the White House. I'd be willing to bet. The lame duck session, which takes place after the November elections but before new lawmakers take the oath of office in January, presents the first test for Republicans. Cruz justifiably and rightfully panned McCarthy's plan to pass a long-term funding measure before a new Congress is sworn in. Kind of usurps the prerogative of the next Congress, doesn't it? Especially if we're going to control it. It would give outgoing Senate Majority Chiseler Dirty Harry Greed a final hurrah before Republicans take the reins, he says, something the notoriously combative Cruz is not prepared to do, and neither should any Republican, frankly. Instead, Cruz wants to pass a short-term funding measure that would give a Republican Congress some leverage over Barack Obama, if they're willing to use the power of the purse to push certain policies. Well, nothing wrong with that idea, quite honestly. Cruz also thinks Republicans will hurt themselves with too much legislating during the lame duck session. Amen, brother. When some in the GOP want to collaborate with already defeated Democrats to pass unpopular policies. Well, can you be more specific as to who in the GOP this is? One issue, for instance, is a little-noticed policy fight that Cruz believes could hamstring the GOP's efforts to win over working-class voters, the internet sales tax. That is one of the favorite causes of the corporate lobbyists on K Street, to jack up taxes on millions of mom-and-pop internet retailers, Cruz says. Now, that helps all the big businesses at the expense of the little guy. Yeah, Ted Populist Cruz, apparently. Cruz is not that I disagree with him on this particular issue, you understand. Ted Cruz's warnings are a part of an effort to rally the conservative grassroots against party leadership. Well, that's not what we should be doing. We shouldn't rally against party leadership, but we should hold their feet to the fire. And if you would cast it in that context, it would stick a lot less in my craw. I mean, Ted Cruz, combativeness needs to be kept within strictly constructive boundaries. Cruz's combativeness is indiscriminate. That's my problem with him, basically. It's too fratricidal. But he also believes that passing conservative legislative priorities will help build a broader political coalition. Well, in other words, what he's saying is lay the groundwork for the 2016 campaign by what we do in the next Congress. That's, in essence, what he's saying, is no conservative legislative priorities are going to be signed by Barack Obama. They're just not. I mean, I would love to be able to imagine, to delude myself that that's possible, but it ain't happening, folks. It's just not. I wish I could tell you otherwise. I wish I could predict otherwise, and the damn page will not load. Okay, I had to beat the hamsters with the sticks, so now we're back in business. Now, Cruz says the alternative to the leadership governing platform isn't pie-in-the-sky legislating. Oh, really? You mean like defunding Obamacare? That was pie in the sky, and you absolutely flambéed your fellow Republicans who all thought you were nuts for that, and they were right, and you were wrong. Same thing with the government shutdown. Just wait a month. If you had only waited a month and saved the shutdown for the debt ceiling showdown, things could have been so much different. But no, you had to pull the trigger prematurely, and it ended up being a disaster. We even lost the sequester as a result of that foolishness. Anyway, Cruz says he just wants Senate Republicans to take up the hundreds of economy-related bills that have already passed the House and died in a Democrat Senate. Well, nothing unreasonable about that. Barack Obama will veto all of them, but those that minority Democrats don't filibuster to death. But, you know, you do what you can. You do the best you can. House Speaker John Boehner has made a habit of protesting Reid's pocket veto of GOP proposals, so it's possible that the freshman gadfly and Republican leadership could unite behind a number of them. Well, it would be nice if they united behind all of them, frankly. Some degree of détente could be good. I don't know why this page keeps jumping around. Some degree of détente could be good for the senator's presidential prospects. He doesn't have any presidential prospects, trust me, folks. Especially not if Scott Walker... Now, I'll tell you what, if Scott Walker goes down in Wisconsin tonight, forget Republicans winning the 2016 presidential election. Forget about it. The best we'll be able to do is Mitt Romney for the third time. And he's going to lose, and he would lose for the third time, folks. So... if we want the White House back, it's basically Scott Walker or nothing. And if Scott Walker loses tonight, which I predict he will, narrowly, then forget about getting the White House back in 2 years. And that's if Barack Obama does leave. Because his heir apparent, his successor, designated successor, will be Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first, November the 4th, 2014. 2 years in advance. Get ready for President Warren, assuming Barack Obama leaves. Where Senator Rand Paul, oh God, not him too, please, started making alliances with the establishment long ago, Cruz embodies the conservative base's... Don't curse, don't curse, don't curse, don't curse. Control yourself, control yourself, control yourself. Oh, what? What does Cruz embody? The conservative base's distrust of Republican leadership. Well, you're not speaking for me. I don't distrust the Republican leadership, and neither should any of you. We're stronger together than apart. This is what I mean about Ted Cruz's indiscriminate fratricide. You know, we are stronger together. We should walk forward together. We should close ranks. And that means both the establishment and the grassroots meeting in the middle. I'm not talking about Tea Partiers just giving up, just giving into the establishment. I'm not talking about the establishment giving into the Tea Party. I mean, what actual differences do we have other than in strategy? This is my point of contention. The Republican Party is more conservative now than it has ever been. We don't disagree on policy. We disagree on strategy. And when it comes to strategy, guess what? The leadership knows what it's doing, and Ted Cruz doesn't. For the most part. Though that sounds like a useful reputation in a Republican primary, throwing spitballs and making catcalls and blowing raspberries at the leadership, you get the sense that Cruz doesn't quite have the public image he wants. And that would be as the Republican Obama, basically. A mirror image, a mirror reversal, a photographic negative of Barack Obama. Which is, well, I mean, you might think, wow, that'd be great. Are you sure? Do we really want another freshman senator who's only been in office for 4 years, getting elected president again? Do you think the American people would do that with the Republican version of Barack Obama? If you think that, then you're the only one. As Cruz tells it, his fights with leadership have taken place mostly because of his unwillingness to play Washington games. Or in other words, be a team player. It's not Washington games, it's how the game is played. You don't play games, guess what? You're not going to get anything done. That's the name of the game. No pun intended. What I've tried to do since the day I was elected to the Senate is 2 things. Do what I said I would do and tell the truth, he says. And flip off the leadership, of course. It says something about Washington that those are viewed as such radical courses of action. Well, it's not necessarily what you do, it's how you do it, Senator. For instance, he refused to grant unanimous consent to a procedural measure that would have allowed Democrats to raise the debt limit in February without any Republican votes, forcing some Republican leaders to vote for the measure because Cruz was unwilling to support the increase himself. Yeah, that's in the middle finger category. Cruz has a well-known reputation for hectoring Republican leaders, but he wants a political brand that has more general appeal. Behold the irony of that statement, ladies and gentlemen. He outlined 10 priorities for the Republican Congress in a USA Today op-ed earlier this month, which touted several proposals dear to conservative activists. Repeal of Obamacare, not happening in the next Congress. Securing the border, not happening in the next Congress. Let me put it this way. Repeal of Obamacare, veto. Securing the border, veto. Congressional investigations of Barack Obama's regime, yeah, they've been so successful so far, haven't they? And undoing Common Core, veto. But he didn't put them at the top of the list. Rather, Cruz wrote, first, Republicans should embrace a big pro-jobs growth agenda. Or in other words, all those House bills that have died on Harry Greed's desk the past couple of years. The legislative plan can even feel like an audition for a campaign in a year's time, which, of course, trust me, it ain't going anywhere. Those who walk the corridors of power in the Obama regime have gotten fat and happy. Well, good reason, actually. Adding that Republicans will reap political rewards for enacting conservative policies. Well, that's not why we should enact conservative policies. Because I don't think we're going to reap any political rewards for doing that, quite honestly. But we should enact conservative policies because of the right thing to do. It's the same reason why we should why we in the grassroots should continue fighting for constitutionalism to bring America back within the constitutional boundaries the Founding Fathers bequeathed to us. Not because we're going to succeed, but because it's the right thing to do. Similarly, enacting conservative policies is pointless in the next 2 years because Barack Obama is going to veto each and every one of them. They're not going to make it into law. We should do it because it's the right thing to do. And because the next cycle of the pendulum's going to swing back against us anyway, so what do we got to lose, right? If Cruz loses the coming intra-party debate, he'll have even more anti-establishment cred in primary season. Well, it's just going to make him more annoying, is another way of putting it. If he wins, which he won't, he'll have something of a legislative record for the priorities and the general, but he's not going to win. So, enough said. I mean, I don't know if Ted Cruz is even vice presidential timber, much less presidential timber. He doesn't have the temperament to be president, folks. I mean, he's more, temperamentally speaking, he's way more like Barack Obama than he would ever be willing to admit. But it is obvious to some of us. Either way, Senator Cruz's plan to spar with Republican leadership in 2015 looks to be precisely calculated for 2016, which is precisely why it is so damned annoying. Yeah, still can't get the damn page to load. That's part of what these bumpers are for, is to provide time to get the pages to load. Let's see, is there anything new election returns wise? No, nothing new yet. Unless, of course, the page is just frozen up, but I don't think it has. Anybody know who is running to succeed Michelle Bachmann, by the way? I don't know. It's just a question I had. Of course, she's in Minnesota 6, right? I think 6th Congressional District. Well, I think Democrats know they're going to lose, or at least they think they're going to lose. They believe they're going to lose because they are retreating into fantasy, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to their happy place, according to David Harsinai at thefederalist.com today, or yesterday, actually, but whatever. With prospects of Republicans recapturing the Senate a chilling reality, though certainly not a given, we've noticed a number of pundits, including the Washington Post's Eugene Robinson, embrace some conventional self-soothing myths about our political situation. Each one means to reaffirm liberal intellectual and moral superiority and rationalize events that aren't exactly going according to plan. Republicans scaremonger, Democrats appeal to reason. Yeah, like the KKK is going to shoot your children. Yeah, that works. It's inconceivable voters could be unhappy with Democrats' recent body of work or the content of their message, like the KKK is going to shoot the children of black adults and voters if they don't vote Democrat. In fact, that's another thing that Michelle Obama said. Michelle Obama said that if black voters vote Democrat today, she gives them permission to eat some fried chicken. I'm not making that up, folks. See the update to my post this morning at politicalpistachio.com. She actually, now, of course, the host was kind of tongue-in-cheek saying that. This is a different interview, a radio interview she did, but can you imagine if a Republican if Laura Bush had said that? If black voters come out and vote for George today, I give them permission to eat some fried chicken. Oh my God. But it's okay if Scheherazade does it. A GOP victory will sit atop a mandate-free edifice of anxiety, hate, rage, and lies. Republicans are conducting a campaign of atmospherics, Robinson explains. Be afraid, they tell voters. Be unhappy. Be angry. Because what reason would voters have to be unhappy or angry? Is Robinson referring to the campaign to persuade voters that plutocrats have the ability to steal democracy by drilling into the collective subconscious of America and forcing us all, or all of us, to vote for Republicans? Well, actually, that's pretty close to the truth, actually, except it's to force us to all vote Democrat because, well, there is a campaign to persuade voters that plutocrats have the ability. In fact, there really are plutocrats who have the ability to steal democracy by drilling into the collective subconscious of Americans to vote Democrat. It's called the Obama regime, or Obama for America, which is just a tentacle of the Obama regime. Really? That kind of atmospheric? Or is he talking about the condom-thieving, vote-stealing white men whose detestation of entire genders and races is so fervent that it leads them to a career in reactionary politics? You know the type. The kind of scum that still supports slavery. Sounds like a Democrat to me, I'm sorry. Or maybe when Minnesota becomes a desert because we haven't pumped enough subsidies into windmills, conservatives will be happy. After all, civilization as we know it today would be in jeopardy if the Republicans win the Senate, says the rational idea-driven leader of the House Democrats. So that was... I don't know how I missed that one. Nancy Pelosi literally said civilization as we know it today is in jeopardy if the Republicans win the Senate. But Republicans are fearmongers. Okay, well, I guess. Okay, we get it. Sure, only one party has a laser focus on the issues that matter. Only one party is irrationally rigid. Did you know this? In a recent Politico piece sifting through potential bipartisanship measures after the midterms, Norm Ornstein ascertains that trade policy, please retard your excitement, is the most feasible low-key legislation Washington can hope to pass because Republican activists will not go ballistic over a signing ceremony conducted by the socialist Kenyan president. Oh, come on, Norm. Sure we will. And Ted Cruz will be there leading the ballistics, right? I know, right? Holding up my Seahawks replica Super Bowl ring. Just like Green Lantern. I know, right? So biting. You hear this sort of thing often, of course. I'd say believing GOP obstinacy is driven exclusively by fantasies and bigotry is almost as insane as believing in a Manchurian candidate. Actually, no, there really isn't anything insane about that, Mr. Harsinai. Haven't you been paying attention the past 6 years? But if you think there's gridlock now, wait until Republicans are driving policy, which they won't be because Barack Obama has all the power and Congress is basically a ceremonial rump organization. So don't worry, policy will still be being driven from the White House. Rest assured about that. Should Republicans win, I do look forward to a slew of Ornstein columns lamenting the Democrat minority's filibustering and sabotage of progress. That feels good. It feels good to laugh, doesn't it? Though I suspect some others, less fair-minded pundits might recalibrate their position to celebrate the power of obstructionism. Or in other words, obstructionism is patriotic as a worthy pursuit in defense of progressive aims. Because, let's face it, this has never been about a mucked up process. It's about what policies are stuck in the muck. Only one party is serious. And Democrats want us to believe it's them. Robinson complains that Republicans are swaying voters with unserious policy goals, including the repeal of Obamacare. We hear this endlessly. Even if the GOP recaptures the Senate and manages to pass one of the numerous House bills that repeal all or parts of Obamacare, he argues, Barack Obama, who Robinson doesn't mention is, well, actually he is serving for life. Haven't you been paying attention, Mr. Arsenault, for the past 6 years? Either way, Barack Obama will veto any repeal of Obamacare. Consequently, the GOP is fooling its very stupid base with frivolous, absurd propositions. Isn't that right, Stimpy? I didn't know I'd have a chance to work in my Ren Hoek impression, so that's kind of nice, actually. Now, perhaps Democrats also have a slate of ideas. Higher taxes on the rich, environmental restrictions, for instance, that have about equal chance of seeing the light of day. Well, not out of Congress, but via Barack Obama's pen and phone. Yeah, we're gonna get all of that. Of course, that doesn't seem to dissuade liberals for a number of reasons, I imagine. First, they're laying the groundwork for future battles. Second, they are utilizing issues for political purposes during an election season. Ooh, that's their sole province in their mind. Nothing new there. Treating one set of unpassable policies, well, unpassable, but Barack Obama will decree it, so they're decreeable policies, and they will be, as set of judicious suggestions, and another set, say building a pipeline or reforming Obamacare, as the hopeless ravings of lunatics might make you feel reasonable, but both exist in the same political reality. Both are equally unserious. Well, no, actually, not the progressive policy objectives. Please tell me I didn't do what I think I just did. Oh, good, I didn't. I think. Oh, yes, I did. This is why the page cannot be allowed to jump around on me. It just jumped right onto a link to a New York Times piece that I didn't want. And, of course, well, before the page jumps, well, maybe it'll just... Maybe this molasses phenomenon will save the day here. Only one party can govern. That's another one. What's most depressing about this election? There's no vision for governing, says the New York Times. Now, Robinson, too, is sad over the GOP's lack of a plan for America. Didn't Barack Obama already do that? I mean, what's the last 6 years been about? Now the GOP needs a plan for America? Oh, my goodness gracious. What the hell is this? By the way, the page actually did shift to that New York Times piece that I didn't want. Oh, I brought it up here, so I'll just close down that tab then and bring back the tab I was on, which I would still be on if the page wouldn't stop, or would, if the page would stop jumping around on me. Oh, this is the hamster's revenge, isn't it? Yes, that's exactly what it is. Well, is it even going to let me go over and see if anything's updated on the election results here? Let's see. Anything new? Any new results? No, nothing new yet. Not other than what I have reported. What are we down to? 20 minutes left on the podcast. Oh, good. Now the page where I was has come back. Yay for me. Yay for you. Hopefully I can get through the New York Times. There is a New York Times piece I want to get to, but it's because it fits into the delusion template. All right, can we get back to where I was heading in the first place, where I left off? No, it's not letting me do it. Okay. Okay. Well, this is not going to wind up in the Museum of Broadcasting, is it? Only one party can govern. Now, what's most depressing about this election? There's no vision for governing, says the New York Times. Robinson, too, is sad. Eugene Robinson of the WAPO is sad over the GOP's lack of a plan for America. Because if only Republicans had more ideas to offer, liberal pundits and the press will be giving them an honest chewing over. Remember how seriously Paul Ryan's budget was treated? You know, the Ryan lookalike shoving Granny in a wheelchair off a cliff. Robinson says liberals crave a robust opposition party. If only because it will help sharpen their own thinking. Yeah, because that's what the left is all about. Thinking. We've heard this bit of concern trolling often. Where are worthy partisan foes, the Reagans and Buckleys, which back in the day the left vilified then, just as they vilify the Scott Walkers of today, so we can volley ideas to and fro before reaching some reasonable consensus, because of course the Democrats are all about consensus. Hey, not every party can churn out fresh policy ideas like the minimum wage, tax hikes, and equal pay. Not only have Democrats failed to offer any coherent plan in large numbers, but they distanced themselves from the progressive vision that only a few years ago was going to resurrect American society into something that the Founding Fathers would never have recognized. Oh, that's nice. Page jumped back to the top on me. I have no idea why. It's getting very frustrating having to put up with this nonsense. Curse you, Firefox! All right. In a fine illustration of Jonah Goldberg's argument that liberals treat their positions as if they were free of ideology, Ezra Klein can't comprehend why politicians we send to Washington are always uninterested in solving problems. Or more specifically, the issues he's identified as critical to our future. After an era of extraordinary action, he writes, we're now entering an era of extraordinary inaction. Or maybe you could call it a reaction, Ezra. First of all, two forces slamming into each other is not inaction. But what if people aren't interested in being governed in such dramatic ways any longer? Maybe another generation has learned what a grievous mistake that really is. A lesson the Founding Fathers could have told them if they'd only been paying attention or even been taught about the Constitution. By the way, the Basic Constitution and 25 Myths of the United States Constitution by Douglas V. Gibbs, available at CreateSpace.com and Amazon.com. Can't leave out that plug, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe Americans are increasingly uncomfortable with the notion of politicians planning their future. Or at the very least, more voters might have come to the realization that politicians aren't up to the task. Gee, really? Never would have guessed that. Maybe Obamacare killed for decades the idea of big centralized governance. I find the prospect heartening. Now let's repeal the damn thing. A real breakthrough. A plan! Left punditry, though, frames this kind of healthy American skepticism about state power as cynicism. I've heard Barack Obama use that term often enough. And if people lose faith in the decency of hyperactive tyrannical government, the nation is plunged into melees. Because, of course, without big government, we'd all die! Or we might actually learn something. One might even call it a constitutional spring. Parties often fool themselves after setbacks. The GOP will as well. No doubt we'll soon have a barrage of post-election autopsies that will get to the heart of the matter. You know the drill. Democrats don't lose because of policy positions. They lose because of turnout. Poorly run campaigns. GOP voter interference. Democrats win elections on the strength of the electorate's evolution on issues. Republican wins are always structural. Not that any of it matters, because even when the GOP wins, it really loses anyway. Just ask Ted Cruz. The New York Times piece I was referring to earlier, Tim Kavanaugh, National Review Online today, reveals just what this New York Times piece is talking about. Apparently, the New York Times, the House organ of the American left, pun intended, double entendre intended for that matter, has come out and called for what I have been saying that the left wants to do. I've been saying this for 2 years now, ladies and gentlemen. The left wants to cancel elections. Period. All the more so in direct proportion to their degree to win or even steal them. And now the New York Times has pretty much come out and said it. Cancel the midterms. The Gray Lady caps the election silly season with the silliest article in a long time, except, no, Mr. Kavanaugh, it's not silly. They really want to do that. They are serious. In fact, I'm sorry to have to tell you, I told you so. Well, actually, usually I'm not sorry at all about the delicious, delectable privilege of saying I told you so, but in this case, I told you so, folks. This is what the left wants to do, and this is a preview of 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, the left wants to cancel the 2016 election and keep Barack Obama in power forever. This is the rhetorical propaganda down payment on that. What the hell is going on at Duke University that a professor of public policy, drawing on the hard-won wisdom of a junior, could write a New York Times op-ed piece that lacks even a junior high school civics class familiarity with the U.S. Constitution? Well, that's because the U.S. Constitution was thrown out 6 years ago. That answer your question there, Tim? And who's minding the rear gate at the Grey Lady's opinion session that the paper would publish something so shoddy? It's not shoddy, Tim. They're serious about this. This isn't about canceling the election today. It's kind of late for that. This is about canceling 2016. Make no mistake about it. Tim Kavanaugh thinks you'll be asking yourself these and other questions after reading Cancel the Midterms, a passionate call to return the former British colonies in America to a more kingly state, which it's already in. As a matter of reality, I don't know where Tim Kavanaugh has been the past 6 years. The piece is by Duke Professor David Schanzer. And the page is locked up. Okay, here it goes. David Schanzer and student Jay Sullivan. Class of 2016. You can't make this stuff up. The title of the piece is just clickbait for a piece about an election that has Democrats trembling. But Schanzer and Sullivan have a proposal that's more inane. It's not inane, Tim. They're serious. Than simply canceling today's vote. They want to eliminate the gross injustice of having members of Congress justify their job every 2 years. There was a time, they write, when midterm elections made sense. At our nation's founding, the Constitution represented a new form of Republican government, and it was important for at least one body of Congress to be closely accountable to the people. But those days have passed. Especially at a time when America's confidence in the ability of their government to address pressing concerns, in other words, things that the government isn't permitted to address by the United States Constitution, when such confidence in the American people is at a record low, 2-year House terms no longer make any sense. Leaving aside the lame and unspecific claim that humanity has evolved in some fundamental, transformed way in a mere 2 centuries, you get no credit for guessing that hyper-accountability has been called into being by a magical threesome of buzzwords, Twitter, video cameras, and 24-hour cable news. Instead, parse the logic a little. Schanzer and Sullivan are saying that because voters don't have enough confidence in their government, they should be given even less control over it. But that works just fine for the left, doesn't it, since they're already in power. That would seem to be a problem if you think the country should be serving its citizens. But the professor and the junior don't actually care about the voters. Their concern is for their leader. Oh, here's a quote from the article. The main impact of the midterm election in the modern era has been to weaken the president, the only government official elected by the entire nation. Since the end of World War II, the president's party has on average lost 25 seats in the House, 4 in the Senate as a result of the midterms. This is a bipartisan phenomenon. Democrat presidents have lost an average of 31 House seats, and between 4 and 5 Senate seats in midterms, Republican presidents have lost 20 and 3, respectively. The realities of the modern election cycle are that we spent almost 2 years selecting a president with a well-developed agenda, but then fewer than 2 years after the inauguration, the midterm election cripples that same president, and his ability to advance an agenda is just not there, even though Barack Obama has his pen and his phone. Yeah, we're down to about 5 minutes. What can I do? Oh, that's hello. The page reset itself again. Oh, boy. You just have to laugh, because if you don't, you'll have a paroxysm. Anyway, the factual premises of Schanzer's and Sullivan's arguments are wrong. Incumbent re-election rates are higher than 80% for both chambers of the federal legislative branch. As of 2010, members of Congress got reelected 87% of the time, while senators 84%. At best, the proposal to extend the term of House members to 4 years and adjust the term of senators to 8 years, Lady Michelle would love that, would change the safety of incumbency by a few percentage points. Or it would do nothing to curtail the legislative branch's heretofore unnoticed power over the presidency, an office whose power has vastly expanded over the past 6 years. The idea that too frequent elections cause an excess of where was it? An excess of totally lost my place. The idea that too frequent elections cause an excess of accountability is simply false. And by the way, strictly speaking, Shanzer and Sullivan are also wrong that the president is elected by the entire nation. And a constitutional nicety that is still with us, the president is elected by the Electoral College, which we elect. But, I mean, you get the flavor, right? Cancel elections. Now, they're ostensibly talking about 2014, but I will guarantee you this is the shot across the bow. This is the running up of this idea up the flagpole for the left. This is the beginning of the left building the case for canceling the 2016 presidential election. Again, I don't want to... I ordinarily love saying I told you so, but in this case, I am obligated to say, I told you so. And the audio is not playing. Oh, isn't this just delightful? Latest election update, 12% of the vote reporting in New Hampshire Congressional District Number 1. Frank Guinta is up 4 points over Carol Shea Porter. We'll be live blogging at politicalpistachio.com mere moments from now. Come on over, keep track, follow our comments throughout the evening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see what happens when the dust clears. See you tomorrow.